banned by my daughter-in-law on Thanksgiving. They flaunted their dinner while I ate alone, until I donated the entire house they live in without telling them. It started 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was in the kitchen peeling potatoes when my son Mark called. His voice sounded uneasy, like he'd rehearsed something in his head and was now rushing through it. "Mom, I just wanted to let you know that this year, things are going to be a little different." My stomach dropped. "Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing." "Different how?" I asked, already sensing what was coming. He hesitated. "Well, Anna's mom is flying in, and with the kids and all, it's just going to be a bit tight." "Tight?" I repeated. "Mark, I've been at every Thanksgiving since you got married." I know, he said quickly. "It's not that we don't want you there, it's just the dining table only seats 8, and Anna's mom, well, she's not doing so great health-wise, and Anna thought it might be best if this year you—" "Did she ask you to uninvite me?" "Mom, please don't take it like that." There was a long silence. "Right," I finally said. "So, where should I go? A restaurant? I just thought maybe you could have a quiet one this year. We'll stop by the next day. Bring leftovers, let the kids see you." I felt the sting of humiliation creep through my chest, but I stayed calm. "No need, Mark. Enjoy your dinner." I hung up. That night, I made a grocery list I didn't need. I had everything already, but the idea of sitting at home with nothing planned felt like letting them win. So I roasted a small turkey, made a portion of stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans, and even baked a pumpkin pie. I set the table for one. On Thanksgiving Day, I dressed in a simple blue sweater and slacks, lit a candle and served myself a plate. As I chewed the first bite of turkey, I opened my phone and saw the first picture. It was Anna's Instagram story. The table was beautiful. White linens, golden candles, Mark carving the turkey, their kids smiling, and Anna's mother at the head of the table holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "So grateful for family." I stared at the screen, then at the empty seat across from me. I felt my chest tighten, not out of anger, at least not yet, but out of something quieter, deeper, like I was fading from their life, erased one holiday at a time. That night, I sat on my bed holding a small photo album I hadn't touched in years. It had pictures of Mark as a baby, his first school play, his wedding day. There was even one of Anna helping me decorate the nursery for their first child. Back then, I believed we were close. I believed she cared. I had given them everything I could, helped with babysitting, cooked meals after each childbirth, paid for Mark's first down payment. And I hadn't just helped emotionally. I had signed the deed of the house they now lived in, a house I used to own, over to him, because he was struggling at the time and I wanted them to feel secure. I told myself I didn't need recognition. I told myself love was enough. But this changed something. The next day, Mark showed up around noon with 2 containers of food and the kids. Anna didn't come. He handed me the plastic containers like they were a prize. "Here's turkey. And stuffing." Anna said the pie didn't make it through the night. I took the containers and nodded. The kids ran to the living room, already asking for juice. Mark sat across from me at the kitchen table like nothing had happened. I didn't mention the dinner. I didn't ask why Anna had pushed me out. I simply asked, "Mark, who pays the property? Taxes on the house?" He blinked. "What?" "The taxes," I said. "You've lived there for almost 8 years. Who's been paying those?" He laughed, a little uneasy. I guess you have?" I nodded. "And the repairs last year? When the water heater broke? Well, you insisted on calling the plumber. I thought you liked handling that stuff." I nodded again. When they left, I sat in silence and made a list. Everything I had paid for. Every time I had stepped in. Every dollar, every favor, every moment I had made easier for them, and I saw it clearly for the first time. They didn't see it as help. They saw it as obligation. He was silent. Then, "I know." After the call, I went out for a walk. The sun was out. I passed the school where I used to pick up the grandkids. A new group of children ran across the field, laughing, their backpacks bouncing behind them. None of them knew me. None of them ever would. I didn't feel sad about that. In fact, for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. Or anything to protect. The version of myself that used to bend to be accepted, to be invited, to feel useful. She wasn't here anymore. And I didn't miss her. A few weeks later, I attended a small gathering at the senior center. Lorraine was there. So were a few of the other women from the morning group. Someone had brought cupcakes. Another played music from an old speaker. We sat around the table and talked about everything and nothing. Bad knees, rent increases, favorite recipes, the stuff that makes up real life. When the conversation turned to family, one woman asked me, "Do you ever hear from your son?" "Yes," I said, "but I don't wait for it anymore." That was the truth, and it felt like enough. In June, I received one last letter. This time, it was from Mark's daughter, my oldest granddaughter. She was 10. The handwriting was neat but unsure. "Hi, Grandma. Dad told me you gave our house away. He said you were mad at us. I don't really get it. But I miss you. I remember you always made me toast with honey and cut it in triangles. Nobody does that now. I hope we can see you again sometime." I sat with that letter for a long time. There was nothing cruel in it, no guilt, no pressure, just a child trying to make sense of what adults had broken. I didn't write back. Not yet. Not because I was angry, but because I was careful now. Careful about who I poured into. Careful about where I placed my energy. And maybe one day, when she was older, when she could understand the difference between love and obligation, I would tell her everything. But not now. Now, I was focused on living. Quietly. Firmly. One morning I met Gloria for coffee. We talked about the house, the garden, the kids, the repainting project the new tenants had started. She said, "You know, we always hoped someone like you would walk through our door. Someone who didn't just want to make a donation but wanted to make a difference." I nodded. "It helped me too. You ever think about visiting the house?" "No," I said. "I don't need to." She smiled. "That's when you know. It's really yours. When you don't have to see it to know it mattered." That afternoon, I walked home past the same store where I had seen Mark months ago. I paused at the corner and looked toward the street, not searching for anything, just remembering. Everything had changed, and for the first time, that didn't scare me. Because they had left me out of their Thanksgiving. They had flaunted their dinner while I sat alone. They had acted like the house was theirs, but I had given it. Then I had taken it back. Not because I was cruel, because I had finally remembered who I was, and I had stopped asking to be remembered by people who only looked for me when they needed something. Now, I was no longer waiting for an invitation to the table. I had built one of my own, and this time, no one else had a key. It wasn't redemption, but it was clarity. 1 week later, I went grocery shopping early on a Wednesday morning. The store was quiet. I moved slowly through the aisles, checking prices, comparing labels, just taking my time. As I turned the corner, near the dairy section, I saw Mark. He was standing in front of the yogurt cooler, holding a shopping basket. When he saw me, he froze. "Mom," he said quietly. I nodded. "Mark." We stood there, surrounded by humming refrigerators and a display of pre-made puddings. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "I live 5 minutes away. This is the closest store." He nodded. "Right, of course." He didn't move, just held the basket tighter. "You look well," he said. "I am," he exhaled. "Anna's letter? Did you get it?" I did. "And?" "It was honest," I said. He looked like he was waiting for more, but I didn't give it to him. "I'm not going to pretend we're back to where we were," I said, "because we were never where I thought we were." He lowered his eyes. "I know I failed you," he said. "I should have protected you from her, from myself." I didn't say anything. You were the only stable person we had, and we treated you like you were disposable. Still, I stayed silent. But if there's ever a way I can make it right— There isn't, I said, not cruelly. Just plainly. But you can be different moving forward. For your kids, for yourself. That's all you can do. He nodded slowly. I understand. We parted ways after that. No hugs, no promises. Just two people who shared a long road and finally stopped pretending it hadn't led to a dead end. That evening, I made myself a bowl of soup and watched a documentary about rebuilding homes after disasters. One of the interviewees, a carpenter from New Orleans, said something that stayed with me. You can't rebuild using the same rotten wood. Sometimes you have to tear everything down before it can hold weight again. He was talking about buildings, but I understood it perfectly. For years, I was the foundation of someone else's comfort. Now I was learning how to build something just for me. And this time, I wasn't using the same rotten pieces. I didn't go to their house again, not even to drive past it. It wasn't mine anymore, and truthfully, it never really felt like theirs either. The nonprofit sent me occasional updates, nothing frequent. Just short notes letting me know that the families were doing well, that the property was being cared for, and that more women and children were now getting a chance to start over. That meant something to me. Not because I needed credit, but because it proved that I had done something with meaning, something that wasn't erased or ignored. In April, I got a card in the mail. It was from the little girl living there now. She had drawn a simple house with a sun in the corner and stick figures standing on green grass. On the bottom, someone, probably the mother, had written, "To the lady who gave us a home. I have my own room now. I feel safe. Thank you." I kept that one on the fridge. It replaced the family photos I used to display, pictures of Mark and Anna and the grandkids during birthdays, holidays, vacations. One by one over the last year, I had taken them down, not out of spite, but because they didn't mean what I thought they did. They were snapshots of something I had tried to hold together by myself. Now I had something different. A drawing from a child I had never met, whose life I had changed more than I ever changed my own. Families in May, Mark called again. This time, he didn't start with a casual hello or an update on the kids. His voice was straightforward. "I wanted to tell you that we're moving," he said. "Anna and we're separating." I didn't say anything. She wants to go back to Michigan, be closer to her mom. And I'm staying here for work. I nodded to myself. "I've been seeing a therapist," he continued. "Trying to figure out how I let everything happen the way it did. Trying to understand why I kept going quiet when I should have spoken up. It wasn't the kind of call I ever expected to get from him. It didn't feel like an apology. It felt like someone who had finally run out of things to excuse. "I'm not calling for anything," he said. I know now that I didn't just lose the house. I lost the version of you I thought would never leave, no matter what." I finally spoke. That version of me never should have existed. I stayed on the edge of the event. I didn't speak to anyone unless approached. A few board members came up to thank me. A few other donors introduced themselves. But I didn't say much. I was there to observe. That was enough. Before I left, Gloria pulled me aside. "Carla asked if she could meet you." Just for a moment. I agreed. Carla approached slowly, nervously, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to look me in the eye. "I don't know what to say," she said. "This house saved me. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. We were living in a car 3 months ago, and now my kids are sleeping in their own beds." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said the only thing that felt honest. "I'm glad." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You don't owe us anything, but I hope you know what this means to us. You didn't just give us a house. You gave me my dignity back." I left quietly. No ceremony, no announcement, just a quiet exit down a sidewalk I used to sweep every Sunday morning. That night, I got a text from Mark. It was just one sentence. "They're lucky they had you." I didn't reply, because they had me, and they let me eat alone. Let them sit in the silence I once knew so well. It had been just over 6 months since Thanksgiving. 6 months since Anna told me there wasn't enough room at the table. Since Mark stood by and let it happen. Since I sat alone at home with a plate of food and silence in my chest. 6 months since I donated the house they lived in, without warning, and nothing about it felt like revenge. It felt like survival. I had started going to a weekly morning group at the senior center near my apartment. Most of the women were around my age, some older, and every one of them carried a story. Stories of kids who forgot them, of daughters-in-law who made them feel like burdens, of families that used their kindness like a utility bill, silent, constant, invisible until missing. We drank coffee out of old mugs, shared quiet laughs, and sometimes we just sat in silence, which was fine too. It was there I met Lorraine. She was 72, widowed, and had just sold the house she and her husband built in 1974. Her son wanted it, promised to keep it in the family. Instead, he flipped it and moved to Arizona. She didn't cry when she told the story. She just nodded, as if it no longer surprised her. We sat by the window, both of us looking out at nothing in particular. "You gave them everything," she said. "And they acted like it was owed." I nodded. I didn't even want thanks, just respect. Lorraine leaned back in her chair. "They say blood is thicker than water, but I think they just mean it stains deeper." That stayed with me. That afternoon, I got a voicemail from Mark again. He had been calling about once a week now. No demands, no guilt trips, just soft, awkward updates. He'd talk about the kids, school events, things Anna was cooking. He never asked for anything, but he also never asked how I was. It always ended the same. Just wanted to say hi. "Hope you're doing okay. Bye." I never called back, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I had nothing to say. When someone stops seeing you as a person, there's no conversation left, just noise. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. It was from Anna. Not a text, not a voicemail. A real letter, handwritten, in a plain envelope with no return address. She didn't start with "Dear" anything. Just, "I've been thinking about what you did. Not just the house, everything." She went on to list things I'd forgotten myself. Times I picked up the kids when they were sick. The Thanksgiving I cooked alone while she stayed in bed claiming she was too tired. The nights I folded laundry quietly while she and Mark argued. In the next room, she wrote, "I don't think I ever realized what it meant to have someone steady. You were always just there, like the light switch, useful, unnoticed, assumed. She didn't ask to see me. She didn't even ask for forgiveness. She ended the letter with, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I thought you should hear it from me, not through Mark. I understand now. You weren't trying to hurt us. You were finally choosing yourself. I would have done the same, maybe not with the same strength." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer of my nightstand. Not to keep it safe, but to keep it from floating around the apartment like it didn't matter. Because it did. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just didn't want it to end with silence." We sat in silence for a long time, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a wall between us. It felt like a choice. When she left, she turned and said, "Thank you for everything. I didn't say you're welcome because I hadn't done it for her. I had done it for me. They had seen me as background. Now they would remember exactly who built the house they lost. 2 days. After Anna left my apartment, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman named Pamela. She introduced herself as Mark's aunt, his father's sister, someone I hadn't seen or spoken to in nearly 15 years. "I heard what happened," she said, "about the house." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what she wanted or where this was going. "I'm not calling to judge you," she added. "Actually, I just wanted to say, good for you. I was surprised," she went on. "You've been carrying that family for years and nobody ever gave you the credit. I saw the way Anna treated you. And Mark, well, he always looked the other way. Still, I said nothing. Let her keep going. You know, they were at my house last week, talking about how you'd ruined everything. Anna was fuming, but what stood out to me was how quiet Mark was. He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just sat there like someone who knew he couldn't deny it anymore. Pamela paused. They're shaken, she said. They're realizing what you meant. I just thought you should know that not everyone sees you the way they did. Some of us remember who held that family together. I thanked her, politely, briefly. It was the first time in years anyone from Mark's side of the family had acknowledged what I had done, what I had endured, but it didn't make me feel victorious. It didn't bring closure. It just confirmed what I already knew. They had always seen it. They just didn't speak up until it became convenient. The following weekend, I got a knock on the door. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, from 2 doors down. She held a newspaper in her hand. "You're in this," she said, eyes wide. I took the paper and scanned the article. It was a piece in the local section about housing reform and philanthropy. It featured the nonprofit that now owned the house, and included a story about the anonymous donor who had changed the lives of a struggling family by giving up her home. I didn't expect to be mentioned, but there I was, not by full name, just a few small details, enough for anyone who knew me to put the pieces together. "That's your old house, isn't it?" Mrs. Donnelly asked. I nodded. Yes, it was. She smiled. "Well, bless you. Not many people would do that, especially not for strangers." She meant it as a compliment, I could tell. But I didn't need it. I hadn't done it to be noble. I had done it because it was mine to give, and I was done giving to people who didn't see me. That afternoon, Mark called again. "I read the article," he said. "So did Anna." I didn't respond. He continued. "We've had a lot of calls. People asking questions, some of Anna's friends. Well, they're not being kind." I didn't say anything. Mark cleared his throat. "I know this wasn't your intention, but it's been rough. Really rough." I waited, and I guess I just wanted to ask, "What now?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, are we done?" I thought about that. "Mark, you're my son. That doesn't change, but the way we interact, that has to change. You made me invisible in my own family. You stood by while your wife erased me from your children's lives. So yes, something's over, but it's not what you think." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I wish I'd been stronger." "I wish so too," I replied, "but wishing doesn't rebuild anything." A few days later, I received an invitation in the mail. It was from the nonprofit. They were hosting a small community open house event, a way to celebrate new donors and showcase their work. I decided to go. When I arrived, I saw the new family standing in the front yard of what used to be mine. The woman, her name was Carla, was helping her daughter pick tomatoes from a raised garden bed. The boy was riding a small scooter down the driveway. Gloria greeted me warmly. "We didn't tell them who you were," she said. "Unless you want to say something, we'll keep it private." I nodded. "That's fine." "What happens next?" "Next?" I echoed. "I assume the nonprofit will finalize renovations and move in more families. The one that's already there? They're settling in. 2 small children. The little boy picked his room based on where the sun hits in the morning." Mark looked down. He didn't argue. He didn't complain. He just sat there, absorbing it. "I came here to ask one thing," he said. "Could I take the kids there? Just once? So they can see where they grew up, where their lives started." I wasn't expecting that. "Why?" I asked. "What would they even understand?" "They'll remember some of it," he said quietly. "And maybe when they're older, I can tell them the truth. Not the version Anna wants to give them. The real story." I studied his face. There was no anger left. No pride. He looked like someone who had finally accepted the weight of what he'd done. "I'm not against that," I said. "But it's not your house anymore. You'll have to ask the organization, and you'll have to explain to your kids why you don't have the key." "I will," he said. I think they need to hear it." After he left, I sat by the window for a long time. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It wasn't revenge. It was quiet, almost like grief. But not for them, for what I had let happen for so long. The dinners I had made that were never eaten, the birthdays skipped, the photos without me. I had given too much, for too little, but not anymore. Later that week, I met with Gloria at the nonprofit office to check on how things were going. She smiled. When I walked in, "I was hoping you'd come by," she said. "The family loves the house. The mother started a garden in the backyard. And the youngest girl, she's only 4, calls the house the castle. That backyard used to be your grandson's playground," I said softly. Gloria tilted her head. "Are you okay?" "I am," I said. "Just letting go of ghosts." She pulled out a small envelope from her desk. "The family asked me to give this to you." Inside was a handwritten note in shaky cursive. "Dear donor," it read, "thank you for giving us a place to feel safe. I haven't slept through the night in years. Last week, I slept 7 hours straight. My children laugh now. We're not afraid in this house. I wish I could hug you. I wish I could tell you that what you did changed everything." I folded the letter and held it in my lap for a long time. They didn't know my name. They didn't know my face, but they knew kindness when they felt it. Mark didn't reach out again for another 2 weeks. Then one evening, I received a voicemail. "Mom, Anna wants to talk. She says she has something to say to you. I told her I wouldn't force it. But if you agree she'd like to come by, I'll stay quiet. You two can speak. I just think it's time." I didn't respond that night. I thought about it. Anna had called me selfish, dismissed me in my own kitchen, treated me like I was a piece of furniture that didn't match the new paint. And now she wanted to talk? I said yes. But I set the rules. She would come alone. No kids, no passive-aggressive smiles, no performance, just honesty. If she couldn't manage that, then there was no point. She agreed. 2 days later, she knocked at my door. I opened it and saw someone different. Not physically. She still wore her polished nails, her expensive scarf, her perfect makeup, but her eyes looked different, smaller, like someone who'd been forced to look in a mirror. She sat down slowly in my kitchen and waited. "I'm not good at this," she said, "but I need to say it." I waited. "I was wrong," she said, "about Thanksgiving, about everything." Still, I said nothing. "I thought I was protecting my space," she said. "I didn't want noise, mess, anyone disrupting the flow of the day." "That sounds terrible, I know." "It sounds honest," I said. "I got used to thinking of you as convenient, someone who was always there, always helping. I didn't respect that. I treated you like you were part of the background, like you didn't have needs of your own." That was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from her. "And when you took the house away," she said, her voice tight, "I was angry, furious. But then I realized you didn't take anything. You gave it. And then you gave it again, just not to us." I folded my hands on the table. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm just tired of being invisible, and I won't go back to that." She nodded. I remembered painting the nursery after Mark was born. I remembered sitting at that exact dining table feeding my grandson mashed bananas while Anna scrolled on her phone. Now, they saw me as a burden. When I left, I didn't take anything, but I closed the door with a sense of finality I hadn't felt in years. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mr. Brenner. "They've received the notice of transfer," he said. "You should expect a reaction soon." It came the very next day, and 8:17 a.m. Mark showed up at my apartment. He knocked louder than necessary. I opened the door and saw his face, red, confused, angry, but not shouting. "Mom," he said, holding the envelope. "What is this?" "You know what it is," I said, stepping aside. He walked in slowly, like, the room didn't feel real. "You gave the house away?" "I took back what wasn't yours," I corrected. "It was never out of your name legally. I just let you live there. Now I'm choosing to let someone else live there." He ran a hand through his hair. "Why would you do this? Because you let your wife uninvite me from Thanksgiving like I was a stray dog. Because you let her treat me like the hired help for years. Because you never once said, "This house was a gift from my mother." Not to her. Not to your children. Not even to yourself. Mark sat down. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't even denying it. Just quiet. "I didn't think it mattered to you," he said finally. "You never brought it up." "Respect shouldn't require reminders," I said. "And I didn't need you to throw me a parade. I needed you to stand up for me when she humiliated me." He looked down. "It's not just about a dinner, Mark. It's about being erased. I gave you a home and you let me eat Thanksgiving alone. Do you understand how that feels?" He didn't answer. After a long pause, he said, "What do I tell the kids?" "You tell them the truth. That their grandmother gave you a house and later gave it to a cause she believed in. That when people treat you like furniture, you don't owe them a seat at the table forever." He left without saying goodbye. That night, Anna called. Her voice was sharp. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You humiliated us." "No," I replied. "I did exactly what you taught me. I stopped showing up where I wasn't wanted." She hung up. The silence after the call was the most peaceful sound I had heard in years. 3 days later, Gloria from the nonprofit called to say thank you. The first family we're placing is a mother of 2. Escaped a violent situation. She cried when we showed her the kitchen, said it was the first time she felt safe in years. I didn't cry, but I closed my eyes and let that feeling sink in. For the first time, that house was serving its real purpose again. They thought they had taken everything from me, but I was only just beginning to reclaim what was mine. For 3 weeks, I didn't hear a word from Mark or Anna. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits, nothing. And then, one Thursday morning, as I was folding laundry, the building's intercom buzzed. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the speaker and pressed the button. "It's me," Mark's voice said. "Can we talk?" I paused, then buzzed him in. He came up alone. No Anna, no kids, just Mark. He looked exhausted. Paler than usual, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a jacket he never used to zip. He didn't ask to come in. He just stood at the door for a few seconds before finally stepping inside. "Mom," he started, "I didn't come here to fight." "Then don't," I said, walking back to the living room. He followed me in and sat on the edge of the couch like he didn't know whether to lean forward or get up again. "I just wanted to explain a few things," he said. "You don't have to," I replied. "You made your position clear for the last few years. So did I." "I didn't realize how bad things looked from your side," he said, avoiding my eyes. "And I'm not here to justify anything. But I need you to know I didn't agree with what Anna did." "Then why didn't you say something?" I asked. "Why didn't you stop her?" He hesitated. "I guess I thought, if I kept the peace at home, everything would just settle down. That if I didn't choose sides, no one would get hurt." I stared at him. "Well, someone did get hurt." He nodded. "I know that now." There was silence for a moment. Then he asked, "Is it really final? The donation?" "It's done, Mark." He swallowed hard. So. They saw me as background. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, drinking tea, thinking. The next morning, I called my lawyer. His name was Mr. Brenner. He had helped me transfer the house into Mark's name back when I thought it was a gift of love. I asked him to look into whether I still had any rights, whether the language of the agreement left any room. "Technically," he said, "you're still listed as the primary trustee of the family property trust. You can dissolve it and redirect ownership, but that would mean evicting your son." "I understand," I said. There was a long pause. "I'll prepare the documents," he finally said. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," I said, because I had eaten Thanksgiving dinner alone, because they posted it for the world to see while pretending I didn't exist, because this house wasn't just brick and wood, it was my life savings, my history, and my last form of leverage, and I wasn't going to die quietly in the margins of their lives. Not anymore. What Anna and Mark didn't know was that their comfort came with terms, and this time I was rewriting them. I didn't tell Mark or Anna about the lawyer. I didn't raise my voice or send any emotional messages. I simply waited while Mr. Brenner moved forward with the paperwork. He contacted the county, reviewed the property trust, and after 2 weeks, he confirmed everything I needed. "Legally, you're still the controlling trustee," he said. "That means you can donate, sell, or reassign the property without needing Mark's consent. The trust structure you set up years ago, well, it kept you in control even if they didn't realize it." I had signed the house over to Mark in name only. What I hadn't done, and what he had never noticed, was dissolve the underlying trust. I paid the taxes. I maintained the insurance. I fixed every broken pipe. In the eyes of the law, Mark and Anna had been living in a house they didn't own. They just didn't know it. The irony was hard to ignore. I had built the foundation of their life and was treated like a problem. Now, I had the option to take it all back. I visited the house. Once more, unannounced. Anna was out. Mark was in the garage tinkering with some tools. He waved from the driveway as I pulled in. "Hey, Mom," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Didn't know you were coming." "I won't be long." Inside, the house looked the same as it had for years. Only now it felt cold. The family photos didn't include me. There were none of the old furniture pieces I had passed down. Even the dishes I had given Anna as a wedding gift were replaced with something more modern. I asked, "Mark, has Anna ever mentioned me being part of this house?" "Even once. To the kids." He seemed confused by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when people visit, when she talks about where you live, does she ever say it came from me? That I gave you this?" He shrugged. "I guess. Not really. People just assume it's ours." That was all I needed to hear. I left a pie on the kitchen counter, one I had baked that morning, and drove straight to the nonprofit office Mr. Brenner had recommended. It was a small organization that helped domestic abuse survivors find housing. Most of them were women, some with children, trying to rebuild their lives. I sat down with the director, a woman named Gloria. "I want to donate a property," I told her. "There will be some paperwork delays, but it'll be cleared in a few weeks. It's in good condition. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, family-friendly neighborhood. I just want it to go to women who need a real second chance." Gloria looked stunned. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "I've spent years giving everything I had to people who didn't appreciate it. I'd like to give something to people who actually need it." From there, everything moved quickly. Mr. Brenner filed the required documents to dissolve the trust, transferring the deed directly to the nonprofit's name. The legal notice of ownership change would be processed in 30 days. A certified letter of vacancy request would be sent to Mark and Anna at the end of that window. Until then, I said nothing. I visited the house once more, this time while no one was home. I had made a spare key years ago, and the lock had never changed. I stood in the living room for a long time. This used to be my house. I remembered laying the first tiles in the kitchen with my late husband.